Sometimes Allah places someone in your life who doesn't arrive to make things easy, but to make things real. Love is not always loud, it is not always perfect, and it does not always come without pain. But there are moments when the heart feels something deeper than comfort, a sincerity that doesn't leave, a presence that stays even when things hurt. This message is not about chasing love blindly. It is about recognizing when Allah has placed sincerity in front of you and understanding the difference between a test and a treasure. Not every difficult love is wrong. Not every love that brings difficulty into your life is a sign that it is wrong. Islam does not teach us that ease is always the measure of truth, nor does it teach us that hardship automatically means something should be abandoned. Many things that carry value require patience, effort, and growth. Love is no different. Sometimes Allah allows difficulty within a relationship not to punish the hearts involved, but to reveal intentions, refine character, and expose what is real beneath emotion. A woman may feel pain not because the love is false, but because both hearts are being tested in sincerity, restraint, and responsibility. The mistake many people make is assuming that discomfort equals danger, when in reality, some discomfort is part of emotional and spiritual maturation. Love that challenges you to grow, to reflect, and to become more conscious of Allah may feel heavy at times, but it is not necessarily harmful. What matters is not whether the relationship is difficult, but whether the difficulty is pulling you closer to Allah or pushing you away from Him. This distinction requires wisdom, not impulse, and patience, not fear. There is a difference between love that hurts because it is unhealthy and love that hurts because it is demanding growth. Unhealthy love erodes dignity, silences the heart, and weakens faith. Growth-based love, however, stretches the soul while preserving respect and intention. It may expose weaknesses, trigger insecurities, and require uncomfortable conversations, but it does not strip a person of their worth. Allah allows certain relationships to challenge us because through them we learn self-control, humility, and emotional discipline. A woman who walks away from every difficulty may protect herself from pain, but she may also miss the opportunity to develop patience and discernment. Islam teaches balance, not extremes. We are not commanded to tolerate harm, but we are also not encouraged to flee from every test. Wisdom lies in understanding the nature of the difficulty and asking Allah to reveal whether it is a lesson meant to refine or a warning meant to protect. Many hearts give up too quickly because they confuse emotional discomfort with divine disapproval. But Allah tests hearts in different ways, and relationships are among the most powerful tests. Love exposes our attachment, our fears, and our expectations. It brings to the surface what we hide from ourselves. When love becomes difficult, it is an invitation to reflect, not to panic. The question is not, why does this feel hard? But, what is Allah teaching me through this? Some relationships are mirrors, showing us areas where we need healing, boundaries, or deeper reliance on Allah. Walking away without reflection may offer temporary relief, but it does not always bring peace. Peace comes from understanding, not avoidance. A woman of faith learns to pause, pray, and observe before making decisions rooted in emotion. Difficulty alone is not a reliable measure of whether a love is right or wrong. If that were the case, many of the most meaningful commitments in life would be abandoned at the first sign of struggle. Marriage itself requires patience, forgiveness, and perseverance. The prophets faced hardship in their relationships, yet those trials carried wisdom and elevation. What Islam teaches us is to look at outcomes, intentions, and direction. Does this love protect your faith or weaken it? Does it honor your dignity or diminish it? Does it encourage growth or normalize harm? These questions matter more than how easy or difficult something feels in the moment. A mature heart understands that ease is not always truth and hardship is not always falsehood. There are times when Allah allows difficulty to slow you down, so you do not make decisions rooted in desire alone. Love can be intoxicating, blinding, and overwhelming. Difficulty introduces clarity. It forces conversations, boundaries, and self-awareness. Through these moments, Allah separates infatuation from sincerity. Many people confuse emotional intensity with genuine love, but intensity fades while sincerity remains. When love survives moments of strain without turning cruel, disrespectful, or faithless, it reveals something rare, not perfect, but real. And real love requires wisdom to recognize, not fear to escape. A woman of faith must be careful not to label every struggle as a sign to leave. Sometimes the struggle is a sign to slow down, seek guidance, and strengthen intention. Leaving too quickly can come from fear of pain rather than clarity of harm. Islam encourages thoughtful decision-making rooted in prayer, not emotional urgency. Istikhara exists for this reason, to seek Allah's guidance when the heart feels uncertain. Allah does not rush His servants into decisions that shape their lives. He invites them to pause, ask, and trust. Walking away should come from certainty, not anxiety. This does not mean enduring mistreatment or justifying harm. Islam is clear about protecting dignity and well-being, but there is a difference between harm and hardship. Harm depletes the soul. Hardship strengthens it. A woman must learn to distinguish between the two with honesty and courage. When love requires patience, but still preserves respect, sincerity, and faith, it deserves careful consideration. When love destroys peace, faith, and self-worth, it must be released. This clarity only comes when emotions are guided by wisdom, not impulse. Allah sometimes allows love to be difficult because ease can hide in sincerity. When everything is smooth, intentions are rarely tested, but difficulty reveals commitment. It shows who stays respectful under pressure, who remains honest when challenged, and who continues to value faith when emotions are strained. These moments are not meant to break hearts. They are meant to reveal them. A woman who understands this does not rush to abandon what Allah may be shaping slowly. Not every love that feels heavy is wrong. Some loves feel heavy because they are carrying responsibility, sincerity, and growth. What matters is whether that weight is shared with mercy and faith, or carried alone in silence and pain. Allah does not ask His servants to suffer blindly, but He does ask them to reflect deeply. Walking away should be a decision guided by clarity, not fear, and staying should be a choice rooted in wisdom, not attachment. A heart that trusts Allah does not rush to give up nor cling blindly. It pauses, prays, and seeks understanding, because sometimes love is not meant to be easy, it is meant to be real. And real things take patience, discernment, and faith to recognize. Love that stays during difficulty is rare. Love that remains present during difficulty is one of the rarest gifts a heart can encounter. Many people are drawn to ease, comfort, and emotional reward, but very few are willing to stay when love demands patience, restraint, and responsibility. When hardship enters a relationship, it acts like a filter, separating sincerity from convenience. Those who are present only when things feel good often disappear when sacrifice is required. But when someone remains respectful, sincere, and steady even during strain, it reveals depth of intention. Islam teaches us that actions carry more truth than words, and consistency during hardship is one of the clearest signs of genuine care. A woman should not ignore this quality lightly. Difficulty exposes character. It reveals whether love is rooted in desire or commitment, emotion or responsibility. When love stays without manipulation, without abandonment, and without compromising faith, it is not ordinary. It is rare, and rarity deserves reflection, not dismissal. In moments of ease, affection is easy to express, and promises flow freely. But difficulty tests whether those promises carry weight. Love that stays during hardship chooses patience over escape and respect over reaction. It does not demand perfection, but it demands sincerity. This kind of love understands that growth is uncomfortable and healing is slow. It allows space for weakness without exploiting it. Allah allows difficulty in relationships to show us who is willing to grow alongside us rather than walk away when things become inconvenient. A woman of faith understands that this level of commitment is not common. It is cultivated through maturity, emotional discipline, and fear of Allah. When love remains gentle, even when tested, it reflects a heart that is conscious of its accountability before Allah. Many people mistake intensity for loyalty, but intensity fades when pressure rises. True loyalty is quiet, patient, and consistent. It does not shout devotion, it demonstrates it. Love that stays during difficulty does not rush to blame, threaten, or withdraw affection. Instead, it seeks understanding, communication, and resolution. This kind of love does not turn pain into a weapon or silence into punishment. It remains principled even when emotions are strained. Islam values this restraint deeply because it reflects taqwa in action. A heart that fears Allah does not abandon responsibility when emotions fluctuate. It remains mindful of the trust it carries. This is why love that stays is rare, because it requires self-control, humility, and a commitment beyond feelings. When difficulty arises, many hearts retreat because they are more attached to comfort than to growth. But love that stays understands that hardship is not always a sign to leave, but sometimes a sign to mature. This love does not deny pain, but it does not run from it either. It faces challenges with honesty and patience, seeking solutions rather than exits. A woman should observe this carefully. Who stays calm when emotions are heavy? Who continues to show respect when conversations are difficult? Who remains consistent when expectations are challenged? These behaviors reveal more than declarations of love ever could. Allah tests relationships not to exhaust hearts, but to reveal sincerity. Love that stays during difficulty often becomes a source of emotional safety, not because it eliminates pain, but because it does not abandon the heart in pain. This presence creates trust. It tells the heart, you are not alone in this struggle. Such reassurance cannot be manufactured. It emerges from genuine care and conscious effort. A woman who experiences this should not overlook its significance. It reflects a heart that values responsibility over convenience. This does not mean that staying through difficulty is always correct, but it does mean that endurance deserves discernment. Love that stays does not justify harm, disrespect, or the erosion of dignity. It maintains boundaries, accountability, and faith. When difficulty is met with kindness instead of cruelty, patience instead of pressure, and sincerity instead of manipulation, it signals something worth considering. Islam does not glorify suffering, but it does honor perseverance rooted in wisdom and respect. In a world where walking away has become easy, staying with integrity has become rare. Many people leave at the first sign of discomfort, believing that peace only exists where there is no challenge. But real peace is often built, not found. Love that stays understands this truth. It is willing to invest effort, seek guidance, and grow through difficulty. This kind of love aligns with Islamic values of patience, consultation, and accountability before Allah. A woman of faith must learn to differentiate between attachment and commitment. Attachment clings out of fear. Commitment stays out of responsibility. Love that stays during difficulty is not desperate or possessive. It is grounded and intentional. It does not threaten to leave to gain control. It does not withdraw to punish. It remains present while seeking improvement. This emotional maturity is rare, and it should never be taken lightly. When love remains steady through hardship, it often strengthens both hearts. It teaches patience, communication, and humility. It refines intentions and deepens understanding. Allah uses such relationships to build character, not to break it. A woman who recognizes this does not rush to abandon what Allah may be shaping through challenge. Love that stays during difficulty is rare because it requires faith, discipline, and sincerity. When you encounter it, do not ignore it, but do not idealize it blindly either. Pause, reflect, pray. Ask Allah for clarity, because what stays when it is hard may be more meaningful than what appears when it is easy. Allah tests hearts through relationships. Allah tests hearts in many ways, but few tests reach as deeply into the soul as relationships do. Through relationships, Allah exposes what lies hidden within the heart: our patience, our sincerity, our attachment, and our reliance. When emotions are involved, intentions surface quickly, and the heart reveals what it truly trusts. A woman may believe she is strong in faith until a relationship shakes her emotional stability, challenging her reliance on Allah. These moments are not meant to weaken her, they are meant to refine her. Allah does not test hearts to humiliate them, but to purify them. Relationships show us where we cling too tightly, where we fear too deeply, and where we forget who truly sustains us. When a relationship becomes difficult, it is often Allah gently redirecting the heart back to Him, reminding it that no human bond should replace divine reliance. Through relationships, Allah teaches the heart balance. Love has the power to elevate or distract, to strengthen faith or weaken it. This is why relationships are tests. They reveal whether love is guided by wisdom or driven by desire. When a woman feels overwhelmed by emotional attachment, Allah may allow discomfort to surface so she becomes aware of imbalance. The pain is not the punishment, it is the signal. Allah wants the heart to love without losing itself, to care without forgetting Him. Relationships test whether a woman can hold love in one hand and faith in the other without dropping either. This balance is not easy, but it is essential for spiritual growth. Allah also tests hearts through relationships by teaching patience. People are imperfect, inconsistent, and learning, just like we are. When expectations clash with reality, frustration arises. These moments test whether the heart reacts impulsively or responds thoughtfully. Patience in relationships is not passive suffering, it is active self-control guided by faith. Allah observes how hearts behave under pressure, whether they turn harsh, resentful, or reflective. A woman who learns patience through relationships grows emotionally mature and spiritually grounded. She learns when to endure, when to speak, and when to step back with dignity. Relationships also test sincerity. It is easy to claim love, loyalty, and commitment when circumstances are comfortable. But when conflict arises, sincerity is revealed through actions. Allah allows challenges so hearts can be distinguished, those rooted in ego from those rooted in responsibility. A relationship that survives difficulty with respect and honesty has passed an important test. One that collapses into blame and disrespect exposes areas that need healing. Allah reveals these truths not to shame, but to guide. Through relationships, Allah tests a woman's boundaries. She learns where compassion ends and self-respect begins. Islam does not teach self-erasure in the name of love. Allah watches how a heart protects its dignity while maintaining kindness. This balance is learned through experience, reflection, and prayer. A woman who ignores boundaries in relationships often loses peace. Allah allows discomfort, so she learns to honor herself without abandoning mercy. Relationships also test reliance. When a woman leans too heavily on a person for happiness, Allah may create distance to remind her where true security lies. This separation is not cruelty, it is mercy. Allah wants the heart to depend on Him first, so no loss becomes destructive. Through this test, the woman learns emotional independence rooted in faith. Allah tests hearts through relationships to cleanse intentions. Love mixed with control, fear, or pride becomes heavy. Allah refines the heart until love becomes sincere, patient, and humble. This refinement may hurt, but it heals deeply. These tests also teach accountability. A woman begins to examine her own behavior instead of focusing only on others. She asks herself how she communicates, forgives, and reacts. This self-awareness is a gift from Allah. Through relational tests, Allah prepares the heart for healthier connection. The woman learns discernment, emotional regulation, and trust in divine guidance. She becomes wiser, not colder. Ultimately, relationships are classrooms for the soul. Allah tests hearts through them not to break love, but to build faith. A heart that learns this walks through relationships with wisdom, humility, and trust in Allah's perfect design. Pain does not always mean you should leave. Pain is one of the most misunderstood signals in emotional and spiritual life. Many people assume that the presence of pain automatically means something is wrong and must be abandoned immediately. But Islam does not teach us to run from every discomfort. Pain can be a warning, but it can also be a teacher. Sometimes pain appears not because a relationship is harmful, but because growth is uncomfortable. A woman of faith learns to pause when pain arises and ask deeper questions instead of reacting impulsively. She reflects on whether the pain is stripping her of dignity or strengthening her character. Allah allows pain to enter certain relationships to awaken awareness, not to push hearts into fear-driven decisions. Leaving should be guided by clarity and wisdom, not by the immediate desire to escape discomfort. When pain invites reflection, communication, and self-awareness, it may be part of a refining process rather than a sign to walk away. Not all pain carries the same meaning. There is pain that depletes the soul and pain that develops it. Harmful pain leaves a woman feeling diminished, anxious, and distant from Allah. Constructive pain, however, challenges the heart while preserving respect, sincerity, and faith. This distinction is critical. A woman who leaves every situation that feels difficult may avoid growth altogether. Islam teaches patience with purpose, not endurance without reason. Pain that encourages accountability, emotional maturity, and spiritual reflection deserves careful consideration. Pain that normalizes disrespect or erodes self-worth must never be tolerated. Wisdom lies in recognizing which is which. Allah often uses pain to slow hearts down. Love can move quickly, emotions can intensify rapidly, and decisions can be made without depth. Pain introduces stillness. It forces hearts to think, to speak honestly, and to reassess intentions. This slowing is not meant to punish, but to protect. A woman who understands this does not rush to leave at the first sign of emotional strain. She seeks guidance, prays for clarity, and observes patterns rather than isolated moments. Islam values thoughtful decision-making over emotional reaction. Pain can be an invitation to wisdom if it is approached with faith. There are moments when pain exposes hidden expectations and unmet needs. These revelations are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Without pain, many issues remain buried, unresolved, and unaddressed. Allah brings discomfort to the surface so hearts can speak truthfully. A relationship that allows space for honest dialogue during pain shows potential for growth. Silence, avoidance, and emotional punishment during pain reveal deeper problems. A woman must observe how pain is handled, not just that it exists. The response to pain matters more than the pain itself. Pain also tests emotional maturity. When discomfort arises, does the relationship move toward understanding or toward blame? Does it invite patience or provoke cruelty? Allah watches how hearts behave under pressure. Pain that is met with humility, accountability, and effort can strengthen connection. Pain that is met with manipulation, disrespect, or fear is a warning. Islam encourages us to differentiate between trials that refine and trials that harm. This discernment requires calm reflection and reliance on Allah. A woman of faith understands that walking away is not always strength, and staying is not always weakness. Strength lies in making decisions rooted in wisdom and self-respect. Sometimes leaving too quickly prevents healing and growth. Sometimes staying too long prevents peace. Pain alone cannot determine which is correct. Guidance comes through prayer, consultation, and self-honesty. Allah does not leave His servants without direction when they sincerely seek it. Pain can also reveal attachment. When the heart reacts with panic at the thought of loss, Allah may be highlighting an imbalance. This awareness is not meant to shame, but to correct. A woman who recognizes this can realign her heart with Allah before making decisions. Pain then becomes a tool for spiritual recalibration rather than emotional chaos. Islam does not glorify suffering, but it honors patience when it is purposeful. Pain that pushes a woman closer to Allah, strengthens her boundaries, and deepens her self-awareness is not meaningless. It may be shaping her into a wiser, stronger believer. Leaving without reflection may silence the pain, but it may also silence the lesson. This does not mean enduring harm in the name of faith. Islam is clear about preserving dignity and well-being, but it also teaches us not to confuse challenge with danger. Pain requires interpretation, not assumption. A woman who learns this walks with balance and clarity. Pain does not always mean you should leave. Sometimes it means you should pause, pray, and seek wisdom. Allah guides hearts that seek Him sincerely. And when guidance comes, it brings peace, whether it leads to staying with clarity or leaving with strength. Discernment matters more than emotion. Emotion is powerful, but it is not always truthful. Feelings rise quickly, shift easily, and are deeply influenced by fear, attachment, and desire. Discernment, however, is steady. It looks beyond the immediate emotional reaction and asks deeper questions about intention, direction, and consequence. Islam never instructs us to ignore emotion, but it teaches us not to be led blindly by it. A woman who makes decisions solely from emotion may feel relief in the moment, but regret often follows. Discernment invites the heart to slow down, to reflect, and to consult faith before acting. Allah gave us intellect alongside emotion for a reason. When emotions are high, discernment becomes even more necessary. It protects the heart from impulsive choices and guards it against self-deception. A woman of faith understands that what feels right is not always what is right. She learns to observe her emotions without surrendering to them, and this restraint becomes a source of strength and clarity. Discernment requires separating what the heart feels from what the soul needs. Emotion may crave closeness, reassurance, or escape from discomfort, while discernment asks whether that closeness is healthy, whether that reassurance is sustainable, and whether that escape leads toward peace or confusion. Allah encourages believers to act with wisdom, not urgency. Emotional urgency often pressures the heart to decide quickly, but discernment thrives in patience. A woman who practices discernment does not rush into decisions when emotions are unsettled. She pauses, prays, and seeks understanding. This pause is not weakness, it is maturity. It allows space for Allah's guidance to enter the heart. Discernment protects a woman from mistaking attachment for love and fear for intuition. It helps her see situations as they are, not as she hopes they will be. Emotion can blur reality. It can soften red flags, justify inconsistency, and romanticize struggle. Discernment clears that blur. It looks honestly at patterns, behavior, and outcomes. Islam teaches us to judge matters by their fruits. Does this relationship bring you closer to Allah or distract you from Him? Does it preserve your dignity or slowly erode it? Does it encourage growth or normalize pain? These questions cannot be answered emotionally. They require discernment. A woman who relies on discernment learns to trust what she observes over what she wishes. This honesty may be uncomfortable, but it is freeing. Allah does not want His servant trapped in emotional confusion when clarity is available through reflection and faith. Discernment also protects the heart from manipulation. Emotionally driven decisions are easy to influence, especially when fear of loss or desire for approval is involved. A discerning heart recognizes when emotions are being stirred to control behavior. Islam values emotional intelligence rooted in taqwa. A woman who practices discernment maintains her boundaries even when emotions pull her to compromise. She understands that love does not require self-betrayal. Discernment allows her to love with balance, to care without losing herself, and to choose with clarity rather than pressure. When emotions are intense, they often demand immediate action. Discernment resists this demand. It reminds the heart that not every feeling requires a response. Some feelings need time, prayer, and perspective. A woman who develops discernment becomes emotionally stable. She does not react to every surge of emotion or every moment of doubt. She learns to sit with uncertainty until clarity emerges. This stability brings peace because her decisions are no longer driven by emotional swings. They are guided by faith and understanding. Discernment grows through self-awareness. A woman must understand her own emotional patterns, triggers, and vulnerabilities. When she knows what makes her fearful or overly attached, she can guard her heart more effectively. Islam encourages self-reflection because it strengthens accountability. A discerning woman does not blame others for her emotional state. She examines herself with honesty and compassion. This inner work sharpens her judgment and protects her peace. Emotion often focuses on the present moment, while discernment considers long-term impact. A decision that feels comforting now may lead to harm later. Discernment asks where this path leads, not just how it feels today. Allah's guidance always considers what benefits the heart in the long run. A woman who values discernment aligns her choices with lasting peace rather than temporary relief. Discernment also requires humility. It acknowledges that the heart can be wrong, biased, or influenced by fear. This humility opens the door to seeking advice, making istikhara, and trusting Allah's wisdom over personal desire. A woman who practices discernment does not rely on her emotions alone. She relies on Allah's guidance. When discernment leads, emotion finds balance. Love becomes healthy, decisions become wise, and peace becomes steady. The heart is no longer pulled in conflicting directions. It moves with intention. This is why discernment matters more than emotion. Emotion feels, but discernment sees. Emotion reacts, but discernment chooses. And a heart guided by discernment walks with clarity, dignity, and trust in Allah's wisdom. When love brings you closer to Allah, pay attention. When love draws a heart closer to Allah instead of pulling it away, that is not something to overlook. Many emotions feel powerful, but only a few elevate the soul. A relationship that increases awareness of Allah, strengthens modesty, and deepens consciousness of right and wrong carries a spiritual signature. It reminds the heart of accountability, not entitlement. When love encourages prayer instead of neglect, reflection instead of impulsiveness, and patience instead of urgency, it deserves careful attention. Allah does not place such influence in a person's life without wisdom. This does not mean the relationship is perfect or without struggle, but it means its direction is aligned. A woman of faith understands that the most important question is not how love makes her feel, but how it shapes her relationship with Allah. Love that brings her closer to obedience, humility, and self-respect is not ordinary emotion. It is a test with purpose. One of the clearest signs that love carries goodness is when it strengthens taqwa rather than weakens it. When someone respects your boundaries, protects your dignity, and honors your faith even during disagreement, it reflects consciousness of Allah. This kind of love does not pressure you to compromise values or silence conscience. Instead, it encourages integrity. A woman should pause when she notices that a relationship makes her more mindful of her words, her actions, and her intentions. This awareness is not fear-based. It is rooted in respect for Allah. Love that supports faith creates an environment where the heart feels safe being obedient. This is rare and meaningful. Love that brings you closer to Allah often invites growth through responsibility. It does not feed ego or entitlement, but encourages maturity. It challenges selfishness and calls the heart toward accountability. Such love does not excuse wrongdoing in the name of emotion. It reminds both hearts that Allah is watching, guiding, and judging intentions. This awareness refines behavior and purifies intention. A woman who experiences this should recognize its value. It is not emotional comfort alone, it is spiritual alignment. Sometimes Allah uses love to correct us. A relationship may expose habits that distance us from Him and gently push us toward better choices. When love inspires repentance, self-improvement, and humility, it is serving a higher purpose. This process may be uncomfortable, but it is transformative. Allah refines hearts through people when those hearts are open to guidance. Love that brings you closer to Allah also increases gratitude. The heart becomes more appreciative, more patient, and more content. It stops demanding perfection and starts valuing effort and sincerity. This gratitude softens the soul and deepens peace. A woman should pay attention when love nurtures these qualities rather than resentment or entitlement. Such love does not distract from worship, it supports it. It does not compete with Allah for priority, it aligns with Him. The heart feels balanced, not torn. When love fits within faith instead of fighting it, clarity begins to emerge. This balance is not accidental, it is guided. When love encourages dua instead of despair, it strengthens reliance on Allah. Challenges become shared prayers rather than private burdens. This spiritual teamwork is powerful. It turns difficulty into growth and uncertainty into trust. A woman of faith must not ignore when love makes her a better servant of Allah. This does not guarantee permanence, but it signals purpose. Allah may be teaching, shaping, or preparing her through this connection. Discernment is still required, but awareness must not be dismissed. Love that brings you closer to Allah increases self-respect. It does not diminish worth or identity. It reminds the heart of its value before Allah. This strengthening of dignity is a sign of healthy influence. When love aligns with faith, it becomes a means of elevation rather than distraction. Pay attention to what increases remembrance, strengthens obedience, and nurtures humility. Allah guides hearts through subtle signs. A heart that notices them walks with wisdom, trust, and clarity. Do not give up too quickly on what Allah may be shaping slowly. If this person respects your faith, protects your dignity, and remains sincere even when it hurts, then pause before walking away. Ask Allah for clarity, not fear, guidance, not impulse. Because some people are not meant to be easy, they are meant to be real. And when Allah places real love in your life, He does not do it to break you, He does it to grow you. Trust Allah and let wisdom lead your heart.